Like a craftsman with their tools, we all have something to offer. We have been designed with a purpose and have opportunities to influence, encourage, and inspire those around us. And simply put, it comes down to identifying the answer to one question: what is in your hand? We believe the answer to this question lies in how God designed us and what He designed us for. If you have a desire to love and lead those around you, you won't want to miss the Move Out gathering. We have Dave Nelson, lead pastor of K2 The Church in Salt Lake City.
What God is trying to help all of us understand, it's not about the job that we're doing, it's about the essence of who He's created us to be.
We have the privilege of hearing from Brian Peterson, a designer from Kia who started a nonprofit for the homeless of Southern California.
Usually, as we paint people, they go from like fans to friends, and then some become like family.
And Danielle Strickland, author, speaker, and co-founder of 4 organizations.
Love is a means by which you can unlock the kind of servanthood that has no agenda, which is so powerful.
There will also be several workshops to choose from. You are an influencer. You have relationships. You have an opportunity to discover not only how you were crafted, but what you were crafted for.
Well, good morning, everybody. Just like they said in the video, we have our Move Out gathering coming up this weekend. And so there's 3 things that we really believe in here. We believe in showing up, jumping in, and moving out. And so a lot of times people hear the Move Out and they think leaders and they check out and they disqualify themselves. But no, this event is really for each and every one of you. There are so many different people around you that you're influencing that you don't even realize it. And so this is an opportunity for us to learn how God has uniquely crafted us to impact the people around us. And so I would love to personally invite you out to the Troy campus this weekend to be a part of that with us. Now, my name is Aaron Jones. I'm the Worship Arts Director here at Clinton Township. And if this is your first time coming to Kensington, we just want to say thank you for joining us. We're so glad that you chose to come today. And we have a gift for you out in the lobby. There's an area directly in the center called the Hub. There's normally people out there with orange shirts and name tags just waiting to meet you and give you a gift to say thank you for joining us today. Now, there's a lot of things that are happening within our community. We talked about Move Out, but there's also groups that will be launching this week. And so in the lobby, you probably also saw some tables as soon as you came in with signs and balloons. And it's for our Connect event that will be happening directly after service. And so you're probably wondering, well, what is the Connect event? The Connect event is to present groups. And the purpose for groups is to make this large place seem a little bit more intimate and like a family, a small family. And so we believe that so many of the life change stories that we hear really start within those groups. And you're probably wondering, what can I get involved in? Well, there's so many things. If you're a new believer, if you just have questions, we have the Alpha course. If you're just looking for a group of friends, we have small groups that actually meet in people's homes. And we also have large groups for men and women that happen in this building throughout the week. So there are so many things that you could jump in and be a part of. And we'd love for you to just stop at that table, see what there is to offer, and jump into a group for this coming season. Now, not only do we have things for the adults, but we also have events for the kids. And so we have a program called Kaleo Kids, and we do a program for them twice a semester, and we partner with a school within the local community, and we really teach them biblical stories, biblical principles, as well as give them an opportunity to be poured into through the arts, whether it's dance, singing, or acting. And so if you have a kid or you know someone that might be interested, I would love for you to go out and stop at that table and meet our Kaleo interns and meet our Kaleo representatives to get you signed up as we go into this next semester talking about how God gifts us with unique dreams to pursue a beautiful future that He has for us. Okay, now 10:30 service, you probably heard us talk about this before, but we have something that we've been celebrating over the holiday season. We had about 11,000 people come through here for our Christmas services, and so we are so excited about that. And with that, new families are also coming in to be a part of this service. But unfortunately, in the past couple of weeks, we have had some weeks where the parking team has shared that some people have pulled in looking for a parking spot and couldn't find one, and they ended up leaving. And so we don't want this to be a place where we can't open it up for everyone. Now, today we do have some inclement weather that has some seats open, so you're probably saying there's not a problem here. But in the future, we have seen historically throughout the different years that this is the prime time for people that are coming in and looking for a spot. So if you call Kensington home and this is the place that you come, I would just ask you to consider coming to our 8:45 or our 12:15 service to be a part of that, to open up seats for the ones so that they can come in and receive the good news that God has for them. Before we move on any further in our service, I would love to have you stand up and say hello to the people around you.
Bleeding colors on the page of black and white. You try your hardest, but you can't stay in the lines. Every failure seems deeper than the last, but your tomorrow doesn't have to be your past. 'Cause every day's a blank canvas for picture perfect, and sometimes it hurts so much, but forever faithful is the hand that holds the brush. Your life is painted with a love that won't let go, and the artist loves you more than you can know. 'Cause every day is a blank canvas for
blank canvas. That's something I think we all want to experience in life, that we can have a fresh start, a clean slate. Sometimes it's for a new season of life. Sometimes it's just the idea that tomorrow is a new day and there's no mistakes in it just yet. Sometimes we want to rewind and just go back. Can we just start this hour again? I need to redo right now. Because there's opportunity to paint a new picture, to write a new story when we have a blank canvas. And we have that opportunity, just like this song talked about. That God actually has a blank canvas for you, that you are not out of chances. Will you pray with me this morning? God, we just thank you so much for just this time to be together here today. And I just pray that you would have your way throughout this service, God, that you would speak through myself and through every aspect of this, Jesus. That you would speak to each heart here today so that they would know how much you love them and how you have new life and bring about new opportunities. That it doesn't matter what has been, but what will be because of you, Jesus. So we love you so much, God, in your name. Amen. Well, good morning, Kensington. My name is Shauna, and I'm the production manager here at Clinton Township, and I'm just really excited just to be able to share with you today for week 3 of our series, Sermons from the Seats. And this has been an incredible series as we've just been able to share some really inspiring stories from people here within our own community of Kensington. And so the first week, we talked about how life can, in the ashes of it and the brokenness, that God can bring about hope. And he can bring beauty to our lives, and there can be joy. Last week, we talked about how life is just a mist. It's a vapor. And we were challenged with the question, what are you living for? And today, we'll be sharing another very powerful story with you from someone here within our own community. And I'm really excited to do that. Now, that song, Blank Canvas, reminded me of a time I went and did one of those painting activities, painting with a twist, paint and pour. Has anyone done one of those? Yep, it's mainly females lifting their hands on that. But it is a great date night. I'm just going to throw that out there. It's a fun activity to go do as a group or whatnot. And basically, if you've never done it, it's like a step-by-step guide. It's not so much of a class as an activity where an instructor helps you paint a picture that you probably otherwise would never paint. And you don't have to have any artistic ability. It's kind of like a paint by numbers adult version, right? Just led by someone. It's a really fun experience. I went a few years ago with a couple girlfriends, and so I brought a picture of our experience. And so we painted Marilyn Monroe. I'm not really a Marilyn fan or anything, but that was the painting. I don't know where my painting is to this day, but you can tell, though, for the most part, they're all really similar, right? Like our group did pretty good. You can see some color differences that you have the ability to kind of make it your own. But for the most part, all of our canvases, you can tell that it's Marilyn. And so it got me thinking, is this the experience for everybody that does one of these? And it's not. So I thought I'd share some of those with you. So here's the first one. I want to say they tried. I don't know. I can tell that there's a tree in a mountain. We'll just leave it there, but good effort on their part. But this next one is one of my favorites, definitely. I love it because they were painting a flower, and he painted just an itty-bitty flower and just was like, no. I feel like if I did do that with my husband, that would be his painting right there. Okay, and I have one more for us. Oh, these guys are so cute. They were trying to paint Olaf, the snowman from Frozen, and for the most part, you can tell who it is. There's that kid in the back row, though. It reminds me more of Woody from Toy Story. I don't know, but that little boy in the front row, you guys, I really want to say that maybe it's a snowstorm that Olaf's going through, but it's just really a mess of paint, right? That's all that is. It's just a mess of paint. And as cute and as funny as that is, I really think that is a really good representation of life. I have a canvas here, and it's just a mess of paint, just like that little boy's. It didn't turn out like the other ones. And maybe it's a mess because of some of the choices, that I've made. It could be a mess because of just how life went, the circumstances. There could be fear, there could be failure, there could be a lot of brokenness. And some of it happened to you. But our life is like this canvas, and there can be a lot of marks on it. And we're going to look at a story today where a guy, he had some marks on his canvas. He definitely made some errors. He made some mistakes. He even made a mistake that he wronged someone that caused him to run away. His name is Onesimus. Now, we find his story today in the book of Philemon, or Philemon, I don't know. We were debating about this earlier, you guys. It's one of those books that no one knows how to pronounce. I even went online and have listened to different pronunciations, and within one audio recording of it, it pronounced it 2 different ways. So you guys, it's the book of Philemon. We're going to call it that today, okay? And if you want to come tell me afterwards, you can, if you have a different pronunciation. But I had to laugh about that. But it's a really small book. It's in the New Testament, and it's only one chapter. And it's small, but there's some really big truths in there. And so it's actually a letter that Paul writes. And Paul writes this letter, and he is a guy who traveled around sharing the good news with people. So he would share the message of Jesus. This is what Paul did. And so he meets Philemon, who's a Roman citizen, and he ends up becoming a believer in Jesus because of Paul. He even starts a church in his house. And so it's awesome. And as it was customary at the time, as a Roman citizen, he had a slave. And his slave was Onesimus. Now, something happens between Philemon and Onesimus. We don't know what exactly, but we know there is an error on Onesimus' part, that he wrongs him somehow. Some people think it might have been theft, we don't know. But so much so to the fact that Onesimus runs away. And after he runs away, he encounters Paul. But at this time, Paul is not traveling around sharing the good news of Jesus. He's actually in jail, and he's in jail because of his faith. And so they end up having this friendship, and Onesimus, because of Paul, becomes a believer in Jesus. And so we pick up this letter now that Paul is writing back to Onesimus' slave owner, Philemon. And so we're going to pick it up in verse 4. And it says, I always thank my God as I remember you in my prayers, because I hear about your love for all his holy people and your faith in the Lord Jesus. I pray that your partnership with us in the faith may be effective in deepening your understanding of every good thing we share for the sake of Christ. So Paul kind of begins this letter. It's really nice, like, okay, I thank you. But he has this really key word in this next verse here, in verse 6, when it says, I pray that your partnership with us in the faith may be effective. Partnership. Well, the Greek word for partnership is koinonia. And koinonia means sharing, a mutual participation. So that means it's not something where Paul sits on a pedestal and everyone else who becomes a believer, they are kind of below him. But it is something that of equality, that you share and we participate in this together. And we see this from Paul in other areas of the New Testament. In Ephesians, which he wrote in chapter 2, he says, whether you are a Jew or a Gentile, it does not matter. But if you become a believer in Jesus, then you are a member of God's family. So Paul really believed this. This wasn't just some sort of like fantasy idea, like I hope we all live in peace and harmony and can share. No, like he believed that if you are a Jesus follower, we are equal and we share in the gifts that God gives us. His gifts of grace, his gifts of love. So he begins this letter by stating this right away. He's like, I'm going to remind you that we have koinonia, that all of us who are believers, we share in this. And I think it's a really good reminder for you and I that it doesn't matter what your past has been. It doesn't matter how often you come to church. It doesn't matter how much you read your Bible or pray. It doesn't matter how much you serve. It doesn't matter if you look like me or act like me. It doesn't matter if you're male or female, what the color of your skin is. It doesn't matter who you vote for, what your social economic class is, if you're young or old. If you are a believer in Jesus, then we are all equal. And we share in this, that it is inclusive, that it is for all of us. And you can be like, yes, Shauna, I know that. Now move on. But I think we know it here, but sometimes I don't know if we know it here. We like the idea of that, but in all reality, sometimes we like it when it feels safe, when people have the same thoughts and opinions as I do. And the idea of somebody maybe new coming along that thinks differently, looks differently, acts differently, has a different past, can rattle our comfort zone. But here's the thing, following Jesus, if you follow him, it's not about being comfortable. It doesn't say that anywhere. Following Jesus is about him. So we have to come back and ask ourselves, if it is about him, then what is he all about? And he's about reaching every single person. He's about bringing his kingdom to earth, which is love, peace, joy, forgiveness, grace, and justice. So if that's what he's about, then that's what we should be about. That we should have a mutual participation as believers in Jesus. We should have koinonia. And we see this, that this is how Paul begins writing this letter. And then he goes on in verses 9 and 10, and he says, "Yet I prefer to appeal to you on the basis of love. It is as none other than Paul, an old man, and now also a prisoner for Christ Jesus, that I appeal to you for my son Onesimus, who became my son while I was in chains." Now we read that and we're like, okay, cool. So he's writing to him and he's like, yeah, how are you? We're partners. Oh yeah, I know Onesimus, your former slave. Cool, blah, blah, blah. It's like a story to us in the Bible. And we sometimes forget that these are actual people with emotions, right? Feelings. I think of it if it was you or I. Let's like bring it to the reality of today. Picture someone in your life who has been very influential, very special. Maybe if you are a Christ follower, it's someone that was part of your journey of leading you to Jesus, or maybe they've been very instrumental in your walk with him. They've been a mentor, but there's someone that means so much to you because honestly, you would not be where you are in your life without them. One of those people. Picture that person texting you. And you get a text of, hey, how's it going? Cool, blah, blah, blah. Hey, by the way, I met so-and-so. And your so-and-so maybe is a former friend, so maybe it's a former coworker. But whoever that so-and-so is someone who has hurt you. They've wronged you. You had a relationship with them, but you don't anymore. Maybe they stabbed you in the back somehow. And so this person who means so much to you all of a sudden is like, yeah, I know your arch enemy. Now, if it was me, I'd be like, whew, reading that text like, you know them. There'd be a lot of emotions starting to stir up. But then they go on to say, yeah, not only did I meet them, but we're now like family. I'd be like, what happened? How? I probably like drop the phone or throw it, depending on where that mood is. But how could you be friends with, don't you know what they did to me? I mean, there'd be so many emotions. The thing is, though, Paul isn't writing this to rile Philemon up and be like, ha, ha, ha. Nor is he giving some sort of status update on friendships in jail. Well, this month I met 3 new people. He actually is laying a foundation here. I mean, he starts it just with the whole idea of having koinonia, that we are all equal. We are partners in the faith if we are believers. Because then he said, I prefer to appeal to you on the basis of love. He doesn't want to hurt him. This isn't to throw something back in his face of something that was painful that happened between 2 people in a relationship. He's doing this on the basis of love. When you continue to read down in the next few verses, Paul describes Onesimus as his very heart. So when he said it was his son, he meant that. I mean, any parent in the room, you understand what that is. I have 2 boys, and they are my very heart, right? They are my heartbeat. And this is how Paul feels about Onesimus. And then he goes on to tell Philemon that, yeah, he's like my boy, but guess what? I'm sending him back to you. But he's not coming back as a slave, though. He's coming back as a brother in Christ. He knows Jesus now. He's a believer. He's a follower of Jesus. So Paul implores this idea of koinonia. He's like, yeah, I know he was your slave. I know technically, yes, he still is your slave, and he ran away. But guess what? He's a believer in Jesus. So yes, his canvas was messy. He hurt you. He did some wrong things. But guess what? He has a blank canvas now. Accept him. He is in the family now. And that is the same thing for you and I. We are to see and accept everyone who comes into the family of God. We're to see them as an equal, as a partner. We're to see them how God sees them, in his image. And then Paul, he just goes on. So he says in verse 17, so if you consider me a partner, once again, he comes back to the idea that we are partners in this, welcome him as you would welcome me. So not only does he implore koinonia, but he actually takes it a little further in saying, don't just accept him, but accept him as if it were me. Because they had a relationship. Philemon was a believer because of Paul. He's basically saying, when he comes back, you better open those arms as wide as you can. Accept him. He stands in and he defends him. He fights for him to be accepted as part of the family of God, to be seen as an equal. Have you ever had someone stand up and fight for you? I think back to a time in my college time when I was home for the summer working. I had a stellar 2-day career as a waitress. Really good, guys. But the place that I worked for just treated the employees awful. So much so that after that first day, I was petrified at the idea that I'd have to go back to work the next day. Sick to my stomach, anxious. And so before I went off to work, I finally mentioned it to my mom. And we had a conversation through the tears and just said, well, we'll get through this day and we'll figure it out, kind of thing. But then I'll never forget, mid-shift, my dad showed up. He was supposed to be at work. And he showed up with fire in his eyes to defend me, to fight for me. He stepped into my situation. He made it his own. And as a believer in Jesus, that is what we are to do for other people. We can fight for others when we take ownership for people's situations, have compassion, and see others as important as ourselves. Now, someone that we will celebrate and honor tomorrow just was a man of that. Martin Luther King Jr. He fought tirelessly for racial equality and justice, but as an advocate of peace and love. He saw other people as important, more important than himself. And he took ownership of their situations and fought for them. I love what he said. When you come to the point that you look in the face of every man and see deep down within him what religion calls the image of God, you begin to love him in spite of. No matter what he does, you see God's image there. There is an element of goodness that he can never slough off. Without love, there is no reason to know anyone, for love will, in the end, connect us to our neighbors, our children, and our hearts. He constantly tried to shift the perspective, to shift our gaze. He was an incredible man. And that's a challenge for us, that we can be someone who's an advocate of love. And this is exactly what Paul does here. He steps in and he advocates for Onesimus, that he would be accepted and he would be seen as an equal and be seen how Jesus sees him. But Paul, he takes it to another level. And these are my favorite verses here. In verse 18, he says, if he has done you any wrong or owes you anything, charge it to me. I, Paul, am writing this with my own hand. I will pay it back, not to mention that you owe me your very self. So Paul goes, whatever wrong Onesimus has done, I will pay for it. It doesn't matter the cost. I've got it. So not only does he step in and defend him to be accepted just as a believer, as a family member, that he is an equal, but he says, you know what? Philemon, if he has done you wrong, if he owes you something, whatever has happened there, I will pay the price. I will pay the price. And this is the gospel message. Now, if you're new here and you're like, I'm just checking this whole God thing out, you need to know this, that God is the ultimate advocate. He sees our canvas. He sees the mess. He sees where we've made mistakes. where there's failures, where there has been injustice done to you. He sees the brokenness, and he steps in, and he gives you a new blank canvas. He fights for you. And it's not because we deserve anything or there's anything we could do to get it. It's because of his love for you. And his love paid the ultimate price, that it takes care of everything and anything you have ever done or ever will do. And so not only do we get to see this image of Christ in Paul here, but it's an appeal to you and me. That we are to advocate for people and to empower them, because that really is the very essence of being a Christian. It is to go give love and hope, forgiveness and grace and mercy to those that are hurting, those that are in need, those that are marginalized. We are to go give his love to them. In Proverbs 31, it says, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and the needy." We are called to notice, but we are called to go to the hurting, to go to the marginalized, to go to the hopeless. We are called to go advocate for other people, to go give them love, because when we do that, we are actually loving God. And I love this quote by Bob Goff. He's an author and speaker, and he says, "Love is never stationary. In the end, love doesn't just keep thinking about it or keep planning for it. Simply put, love does." But man, how many times do I just think about it? Overthink it. I'll know someone who's hurting, and I'm like, I should really text them. I should text them so we can go out for coffee, so I can just, but then life, I don't know. We need to stop thinking about it and actually go do it. We need to go be love. Because if that is who Jesus is, and it is not stationary, it is actually something we do, it's an action word, then we need to go do that. We need to be willing to go step into someone else's mess. And not just step into it, but to say, guess what? You have a blank canvas. There is a God who loves you. There is hope. There is justice. And we are going to share a powerful story with you about two different people from two very different worlds and how they learned to be an advocate for each other. It's a story of deep love and friendship that binds these two people together, Scott and David. And throughout their 30-plus year journey, they've definitely faced challenges. But because of Christ, it's a story of love and advocacy. Now, parents, if you have any young children in here, I do want to let you know that there is just a PG kind of rating for just the first 30 seconds. There's some mature content that is mentioned, but the whole video is not just for that, so to use your discretion for that. But before we watch their story, we want to receive our offering this morning. And if it is your first time here today, this moment's not for you. This is designed for those of us that call Kensington home. So you can let the pouch just pass on by you. And for those of us that call it home, there's different ways that you can give. You can give online. You can go to our app. You can text Kensington to 77977. And we just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for your faithful giving and just to be on mission with us. Now, let's watch the story of Scott and David.
Life took a dramatic turn. I was raped at 13. Started drinking, never had a drink in my life, never smoked anything until that point. By this time, I'm on the street, I'm walking back and forth, up and down alleys, trying to figure stuff out. And at that point, spiraled out of control. When I was 17, just a lot of heavy drinking and a lot of debating here and there. And then the next thing you know, I shot this guy and I went to prison. First day I walked into prison, they had this big steel door. And when they opened the door, all you can hear is this loud noise from a bunch of people. You don't even know where it's coming from. Now you in with the prisoners and everybody hollering and screaming, hey, you fine guy, hey, you this, hey, you that, I'll see you in a minute. Don't worry about it, I got some food for you, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that for you. I ain't paying any attention, I'm just got my head kind of down because this is new to me. What must I do to survive this? If this is any indication, what must I do? Prison is opportunity and prey. Staff as well as prisoners. Because you had staff loan money to prisoners and I don't like David, so get him off the yard. And that's how that stuff basically went. They try you. And if they can get away with it, then you become the prey for the rest of your time you're in prison.
I was an inspector. And as the inspector at the facility, I conducted investigations for prisoners who would be working in close proximity to the secure, unsecure gate area. I interviewed David then as an inspector, and it was just something about him, the way he carried himself, his behavior, his honesty about what he was incarcerated for. It's rare that you find a prisoner that says, yes, I did do this. This was the circumstance. This is why it happened. So that was kind of refreshing. I hired him. He worked for me for a number of years as the inspector. And then as I progressed through the department, I kept David working in the same suite area. As the deputy warden, I had a suite of 8 to 10 offices and the control center to the facility. And David was he was a little bit of everything for me. He was a clerk, he was a porter, he was a painter, he was a mechanic, he did it all. And so I kept David in that position and at the facility for 25, 26 years.
Yeah, why you working up there with Scott? Why you doing this in? Why you? I see you walking down the sidewalk with Scott. Yeah, I do. What's up? You know how that look? I said, yeah, I know how it look. That's my friend. I'm a friend of his and he's a friend of mine. I don't bother your business, and I appreciate it if you just don't bother mine.
It started slow, like everything does.
It does.
In prison, because there's a distrust from Dave's perspective and from mine. Yeah. And that takes a long time to just grow, especially for me, probably. It took a long time.
Yeah, it did.
Because I was the disciplinarian who I didn't trust anybody. And probably still don't trust many. And you have to, you can't just let somebody in. And Dave's is probably even harder for Dave because Dave can't run the risk of letting someone get close to him because he's been disappointed for 42 years. There was always that disappointment. Somebody will let you down. Somebody is gonna be there for you, and then the minute you need them to be there, that person won't be there. And that happens a lot in the prison system. And he got a lot of pushback. From prisoners, from staff people. Why you? Why is he helping you? You know, it was difficult for him.
It was, and I just made up in my mind that I'm not gonna even deal with people, places, and things because no matter what I did or said, I wasn't gonna convince them that me and Scott is friends. That, you know, we just like we human, and this relationship is what it is. It's real. The first time I really wanted to get everything out of me because I've been carrying it for years and years. And I walked into Scott's office one day, hey, Scott. He said, hey. I said, here, read this. And I'll see you later. And I walked away. He read it. And when I seen him again, I think the next day, I looked at him and he looked at me, and I felt that feeling of somebody caring about me or loving me. That was him.
It's so hard for prisoners to trust anybody. Prisoners can't, for the most part, trust other prisoners because it's a dog-eat-dog kind of a world. And to trust a staff person with something that's so deep inside you and so important part of your life, that was extremely significant that he was willing to do that, because that was Dave telling the story about what happened to him once he initially got incarcerated. Dave was a young kid, a small young kid, thrown into an adult environment.
132 pounds.
With very, very evil people at times. Dave was victimized, but he couldn't tell anybody that. Dave didn't get visits. He didn't get visits by his own choice, but he did 42 years with less than 4 or 5 visits, right?
Yeah, about 7, 8 probably.
And some of those were clergy visits.
Yeah.
So there wasn't that contact outside of someone he could talk to. And so that became me talking to Dave and Dave talking to me. He knew, and it was at the forefront of his mind, that he was not getting out of prison.
Ever.
He was doing natural life. He knew that his only shot would be something so far-fetched that it probably would never happen, or a commutation from the governor.
Yeah. When he retired, when I found out that he was retiring, that was the worst. That was the worst, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to talk to him and socialize and get that morning coffee in and all of that little stuff that we had built together. And
it was extremely difficult for me to tell Dave, hey, look, after all this time, I'm going to be gone and I'm not coming back. But look, I'm going to do whatever I can do to help you. I think I was retired 4 or 5 years before the Supreme Court decision came out. Supreme Court came out with a decision that said anyone who was sentenced to natural life as a juvenile had to be reconsidered.
Yeah.
Their sentence is reconsidered by the court.
Yeah.
Because it's so true that people are just not the same people that they were when they were 16 and then when they were 50. And so the law said that you had to be reconsidered. I knew I had to do something. And so I contacted Dave's attorney, told him who I was and what I wanted to do. And I don't even think David knew it then.
No, I didn't.
You didn't know it until you talked to your attorney after the fact. Mm-hmm. And she put me in contact with the 2 attorneys who were handling his case. And I think they were just flabbergasted that I had called. And I think at that point, you kind of got the idea that I was helping from the outside.
Yeah, that's when I knew.
Dave had to go back to court. So that was the first time we had seen each other in 5 years.
Yeah.
When he went back to court, and I think he was just shocked that I was there.
I was.
To testify for him in this rehearing.
My case itself didn't matter. I just wanted to see my friend.
Dave was sentenced to a minimum of 40 years. And he'd already done 42 years.
Yeah.
So we both knew that he was immediately eligible for parole. So it was at that point that I had to talk to my wife. I had talked to my wife about Dave before, but now I'm talking to my wife and saying, hey, look, he's got me, and he's got you now. And I want to be able to go to the parole board and say, hey, look, if you let him go, Dave can live with us. I'll do what I have to do to ensure that he gets to every parole hearing, give him a chance. And that's what we did at the parole board.
That's what we did.
April 18th.
April 18th.
That was the day
that
he was getting out. So I waited for him in the lobby, and he came out, and I don't think he knew what to do.
I didn't.
He was excited about his first traffic jam. I remember our first traffic jam coming back from a parole board hearing. Freedom is just, it's a difficult word to comprehend because you've lost so much. Yeah. And you're trying to pick up on a world that's moving 100 miles an hour.
You don't ever think about getting out, like getting out. You hope you get out. And when it happens, it's almost like you was in in a dream and you woke up, and when you woke up, you was outside the fences, not knowing which way to go. But I didn't have that. I had Scott, so I knew which way to go. I just need you to know, at the end of the day, contrary to whatever said and done, I love you.
I love you too, brother. He knows. David knows that this really, and he really knows because he knows me.
Yeah.
And he knows the other side of me for all those years.
Yeah.
David's a part of our family. He's my brother. I love David, would do anything for him.
Yeah.
And he knows at the end of the day that no matter what happens, he's always got us. This isn't a one-way street. I have learned so much from David. And he means so much to me and to my family. God is there. He's always been there. And I think it just took a long time of God putting in my heart and on my head that you can't judge a person based on their one worst mistake that they ever made in their life as a kid. And there's good in everyone. And he's a perfect example.
It's powerful. I was able to speak with Scott this morning and just him sharing that they continue to be on this journey together of deep, authentic friendship, of just being God's love to each other. And we don't share that story so that we can just go help someone who's less fortunate. That's not the heart of this day or the story. But that we would engage in deep, real, meaningful relationships with those that are around us. That if you've experienced the hope and the love of Jesus, and if he has changed your life, that you would now go step into someone else's life. That you would step into the mess, no matter what it looks like, and offer them hope and the love of Jesus. You have the opportunity to tell someone they have a blank canvas. You can tell them that they are priceless, that they are such value to God. You can do that. And it will look different than Scott's story. It'll look different than how I do it. But you have to ask yourself, are you willing? Are you willing to lay down your reputation, your status, your privilege? Are you willing to lay down your life to see other people as God sees them? How God sees you and how he sees me as his child, as someone he so deeply loves, and as an equal. And you might wonder, well, how? How do I do that then? First step is just to ask him. Just say, God, show me. Show me whose life I can step into and be an advocate of your love and your hope, that I can stand up and fight for them and show them that they are worth something, that they are priceless to you, God. Show me who and how. Start by asking. Because when we do, when we are an advocate and we love someone, our hearts become one. We share in koinonia. So go be love. But I know that in a room this size, there are some people here You're not at a place to be an advocate because you need someone to be an advocate for you. There's hurts, there's failures, there's fears, there's rejection, there's shame and loneliness, and there's just a lot of pain. Your canvas feels really messy. But God is here today. And He wants to step into your life and fight for you and be your advocate and give you the blank canvas today. He wants to do something new in your life. In Isaiah 43, it says, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland." Your life is not a wasteland. You're not too far gone. There's a God who cherishes you. You are so immensely loved, and it does not matter what you have done, what has been done to you, or what will ever be. You are loved.
spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. For I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. will you give yourself away? Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
You are loved. You are so, so loved. And God will do whatever to tell you that. And for you to experience his love, he will chase you down. He will fight for you. He steps in and defends and fights for you. He loves you. And our prayer team is going to be down front and is available if you need to pray with them or just talk to them. But otherwise, I hope you'll come back next week as we conclude this series for week 4, Sermons from the Seats, and as we dive into another incredible story. But until then, just go be love.